Happy New Year, the first podcast of 2024, and we're rocking with you on the DNVR Broncos podcast. We have like 300 of these coming your way this year, rolling with Super Bowl 50 champ Todd Davis, Henry Chisholm, and Zach Stevens here. How was your New Year, fellas?
Mine was great. Was able to bring in the New Year with some friends, family, had a great time. Didn't get too lit, but I was able to enjoy myself, so it was fun.
That's perfect. So you didn't wake up with a hangover on the New Year?
No. Luckily, I was able to get up and go to the gym, so felt good.
Yeah,
bringing the New Year with a new energy.
Yeah.
But I was surprised, man. There wasn't like this big New Year's rush of people at the gym.
Yep.
Everybody just say, forget it. We're not going to add that to the list this year.
You know, I didn't. So my gym was funny enough closed yesterday on the New Year. So I went this morning, and there was just like one face that I didn't recognize.
Yeah.
So I agree. Are people taking this week off or just this year off?
I felt like people took New Year's Eve off. Well, yeah, like I didn't see people, like you go on Instagram, usually it's like everybody's at like parties and all that sort of stuff. Like I felt like nobody really did things for New Year's Eve.
Well, Denver was just depressed because the Broncos were eliminated from the playoffs.
Sad.
That was a weird day.
Yeah.
Because like they won. And so everybody's like happy, but then also sad.
Yep.
Like I was confused because you wait in the tunnel for like all players to come through.
Yeah.
And I was like, it was like right after we found out that they were eliminated. And they're all coming through and they're like screaming and happy and stuff. And I was like, wait, that's weird. And I was like, oh, they aren't going to find out until they get to the locker room that they got bad news.
Yeah.
But that's what happens when you take it out of your control.
Yep.
Like that's the only thing you can wish for at the end of the year is that you have full control over whatever happens with the playoffs and extending your season. When you give that away, and you know sometimes it just goes bad. You got to wait to see if somebody else does what you need them to do.
Yep.
And I said this on the post-game show, but I was just shocked the way that Sean talked about it after the game. He had seemingly, he didn't say this, but the feeling I got was he accepted that the Broncos were out of the playoffs after they lost to the Patriots, which is fair. I mean, they had an 80% chance to make the playoffs if they had beat the Patriots and won their remaining games of the season, and it dropped to 5% after not beating the Patriots. So
20% if they win. And
right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just dropped astronomically. And then in the locker room, Todd, that's exactly what players said, is exactly what you said, was, you know, we lost that opportunity. It stinks. It's good to win. And now they're focused on getting that 9th win. And it really felt like, you know, with the new year coming up, sometimes people go into do their bad habits a lot. Like they're like, oh, next year I'm gonna hit the gym a lot, so I'm not gonna go this week, the final week of the old year. They're like, you know, I'm gonna do dry January, so I'm not gonna drink in January. So might as well have a couple of more beers tonight. It kind of felt like that's what the Broncos were last week. They're like, new year next week, so let's get all the drama out of the way this week with Bench and Russ and everything that came with that. And we're going to dive into that because there's some really interesting pieces that have come out in the past week about where things stand with Russ. But before we do that, Henry, we haven't got your thoughts on the game.
Yeah. It was basically the same game again. like nothing really changed. You know, you expect like either Stidham's going to be awesome or Stidham's going to suck. And it's like, oh, no. Stidham's just the exact same as Russ. The offense looks the exact same. I think I tweeted out the numbers, and it's pretty crazy just to see how similar they were because Russ played the Chargers 4 weeks ago.
Yep.
And I tweeted a lot. I didn't even realize. So Russ completed.
It's not like you.
Yeah, no. New year, new me.
Is that your New Year's resolution?
There we go. No. I should actually come up with one. So Russ, when he went to LA to play the Chargers, 21 of 33. Stidham this week, 20 of 32. 224 passing yards for both of them.
Crazy.
Russ had 2 touchdowns and interception. Stidham had 1 touchdown, no interception, so you add 1 of each. Stidham 6 carries, 6 yards. Russ 6 carries, 5 yards.
It was honestly scary.
It was the
like
exact
how
same.
similar their performances were. And for me, I feel like $50 million versus $5 million.
That's the thing.
It should be a very big drop off.
Yeah.
And I just we didn't see that.
Yep.
And that's such a great point because of the difference in contracts. But then also you throw in on top of that, that was week 14, right?
Yeah.
So the Broncos had a bye week. So Russ had 12 games leading up to that game, right?
True.
So how many did Jarrett Stidham have
0.
before this? So not only the money,
Yep.
but then Russ had 12 games before that game, and Jarrett Stidham had 0. You can look at that, and it's really funny how people have looked at that stat. Well, I guess not different, the exact same stats.
Yep.
And some people say, well, see, Jarrett Stidham's no better than Russ. The people that want to take Russ's side. And then the other people kind of say what we're saying. And Todd, I definitely lean on your side. That's a very damning stat to Russ. Do you agree, Henry?
I mean, yeah, but like it's nothing new. Like I'm not all of a sudden thinking like, oh wow, Russ is underperforming. It's kind of just like, yeah, anybody can do what Russ has done, and anybody just went and did what Russ did, and so you're just like, yep, it's. I get like you come out of it and you're just like, oh, this is kind of what you expect. This was the most average outcome. The offense is the exact same, and it's kind of what I expected.
You know, one other point that I have to point out is that the weeks prior, everybody was talking about how Sean was calling certain plays to make Russ look bad, and he wasn't giving him opportunities. They were the exact same plays. From slants to bubbles to Javonte, pass behind the line of scrimmage. The couple shots, we took a couple shots. We just didn't have Cortland. But it was the exact same game plan. So if he had an opportunity to make Russ look bad or to have his guy in there to put together some awesome script that he hasn't pulled out of his bag, he would have done that.
Yep.
This is what he feels like is the best game plan for the team, and he just needs a quarterback that can execute it.
Yep. There weren't as many quarterback runs. That was the one thing. And
yes,
didn't you say there were 6?
Well,
Jarrett
I mean,
ran
like,
6 times?
I mean,
there's like the
Right.
scramble in those games, but there were we didn't see like the read option Russ. Sometimes you see like that power backs or whatever, but yeah, I mean, it was the same thing. Oh, the other thing I wasn't sure if we'd seen before, they used like that motion it was Jerry who ran it, and it's like the new Dolphins motion where you like you like are running sideways at the snap and then turn up field, and so you kind of get the head start. I feel like the Broncos might have done that once at some point. But I wasn't sure. But that's one play. And it was the exact same offense.
Well, and speaking of one play, Todd, last week on the Inside Scoop, you broke down one play where Russell Wilson, Jerry Jeudy's just about to come open, right at the numbers, about 15 yards downfield. There's a little opening for Russ to potentially step up if he wants to, or just stay right in the pocket. But instead, he panics because there's a middle linebacker that's about to come through the hole. He panics, turns his back, runs straight into a sack. That nearly exact play happened, and it turned into the 54-yard touchdown to Lil Jordan Humphrey. Now, Lil Jordan Humphrey did a ton to have that play go through, but instead, there's that exact same area that's open in the pocket. Stidham runs up into it, and then hits Lil Jordan Humphrey nearly on the exact same route, exact same spot that Jerry Jeudy would have been the week before. Hits him inside the numbers, 15 yards downfield. That's the intermediate spot in the middle of the field that Russell Wilson never capitalized on. And then obviously Lil Jordan Humphrey does the rest, and it's a great play from him. But even if that Lil Jordan doesn't break literally 5 tackles to get a touchdown on that,
still a great play.
It's still a great play. It's still a first down. The quarterback did what Sean Payton wanted him to do, and that is just one play. But to me, in back-to-back weeks, especially because you broke the Russ one down perfectly the week before, and then 6 days later, we see Jarrett Stidham do the complete opposite and make a big play out of it. That, to me, is something that on Monday morning, even though the Broncos only put up 16 points, that Sean looks to and says, I made the right call, benching Russ. And whether or not it's the right call moving forward and with the dead cap, and we'll get into all of that, Sean says, in this game, I made the right call because of that play.
Yeah, I think so. I think it speaks to the opportunities that were there and not capitalized upon. So Jarrett Stidham was able to do, and in some ways what Russ couldn't, and find, Lil Jordan Humphreys on that play. And if you watch the tape, there's a couple more opportunities I feel like he wishes he could have back, whether it was slants or finding guys throughout the field. Like, he was finding the open guy. I just feel like he couldn't always connect with them.
Yeah, definitely. The other thing that is also kind of crazy about the similarities. Jerry's drops. Like that's what I mean. Is like you go and you're like, well, yeah, I mean it's 224, but also Jerry really could have helped him out with a couple of those early on. And then somebody tweeted like the clips of that first Charger game. I was like, oh right, that was that game where it's like Jerry took the really big second step to not get the touchdown. Had like the one downfield. Yep. It's like when you're talking about how this offense, like, yeah, Stidham didn't like make it this whole new great thing. Russ obviously has had the kind of the same thing all year. There is more to it than just the quarterback. I still really think that. And again, like, you don't have Court out there this week and all that, but, you know, one more just really good receiver, or if the pocket was just a little bit better, you get that tight end who can just open things up. You know, the running game, again, I mean, Jaleel looked nice, but Javonte, 15 carries, 41 yards. Like, if you give one of them a running game that's a little bit stronger, like, what does it look like? Like, I think that was the big takeaway to me, was that I'm not going to say the Broncos don't have a quarterback problem, but they have more than just a quarterback problem.
Oh, without a doubt. And that's an unfortunate thing. And now you're not going to have a lot of money if you move on from Russ in order to get those other pieces around. But actually, that's one point that I hadn't thought about. Russ has had Courtland Sutton. Russ has had Marvin Mims. Marvin, really good at the beginning of the season, then they just didn't use him. He fell off. But Courtland Sutton, without a doubt, has been the Broncos' best offensive skill position player, at least this year. And Jarrett Stidham didn't have him, didn't have the third best receiver in Marvin Mims, third or fourth best receiver, but didn't have the true number one receiver that Russ had in Week 14. And he was still able to put up nearly those exact same numbers. And now I'm sure we could look back at that Chargers game. I'm not just trying to bash Russ. That's not what this is. We could look back at the Chargers game and Jerry, like you said, dropped one that could have added to Russ's stat sheet, touchdowns and yards wise. But how about that deep ball that Jarrett had that hit Philip Dorsett right in the hands? Now, it was tipped too, so I'm not putting it all on Philip Dorsett, but I mean, there was also opportunities left on the table by the Broncos receivers for Jarrett too.
Oh,
There were. I mean, it's just, I think, you know, it's funny because I watched the game last night where there was a very, very dominant quarterback. We don't have to mention his name, but even when the ball was tipped,
you can talk about him.
Even when the ball was tipped, the player was able to come up with it because it was such a great pass. And I'm just going to mention his name. Penix, man, I feel like I've been going on and on saying he's the man. And if you watched the game last night, I don't know how you could have any other or make any other statement. He is hitting guys in stride. Guys aren't even reaching out for the football. They're literally running, and it's dropping right in. Like,
insane.
He needs to be in orange and blue. I don't care what it takes. Sell the farm. And go get Penix.
When did you first say the Broncos need to go get Penix?
That was like
3 months ago.
Yeah, for sure.
3 months ago.
Early.
Yeah. So you've been on that train for a while. I mean, I don't think you're wrong. I did my 24 predictions for 2024, which you guys should go read at thednvr.com. I think I got some fun ones. But so in the morning I put it out, and in there I have the Broncos taking Michael Penix in the first round.
Yeah.
And everybody was like, "What the hell are you talking about? Nobody's taking him in the first round." Like, that's just absurd. Like, the injuries, he's not going before the third round. Like, you're crazy. They're gonna and then after the game, or even at halftime of the game, everybody's like, Penix, oh, this would be awesome. This would be so good. So I'm feeling pretty good about that one. That people
kind of nobody watched him because he wasn't in the SEC or because he had 4 injuries. Yeah, he did, but at the same time, the accuracy that he has and the way that he's able to stand in the pocket and make throws, and even being able to use his legs just enough to find the open receiver, man, that kid is nice.
And what he's so good at is, like, he gives his receiver a chance. And when you have, like, 2 incredible receivers, it sure does look good. Like, when you have, like, Odunze, for example, who you're just running down there, it's like, oh, yeah, defender's got his back turned. You can just drift it right over the defender's helmet and give him a chance to go make the catch. It looks really nice. But sometimes in my mind, you, like, plug in the Broncos receivers, and Court can make all those catches. We know that. But, like, do those other guys make plays for him? But I don't know. That can't be a reason to not like Penix.
Exactly.
Because, like, if that doesn't work out, then you just need new receivers.
And we can't shade him if we didn't shade Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow had arguably the best wide receiving core of all time in college football. If we didn't slight him for who he had, we can't slight
exactly.
Penix.
And then what?
100%.
And then what did the Bengals do? Went and got him Jamar Chase. So I don't know
You're not
how
going to get Penix and Rome.
I know, yeah, but you get like Odunze, but then they also have like that McMillan guy who's also awesome. I'm not sure if he's draft eligible. I haven't like looked into all that stuff
Broncos
yet.
have McMillan.
Don't you want another?
One on each side of the ball.
Like maybe I don't know. It would be crazy for Sean to find a way to get back into the first round so that you get both of those guys. But if you did, I would love that. Like then all of a sudden,
Stop.
it would make sense though. Like that's a good bet. Like just keep that chemistry going. You know you have something that works there.
I mean,
I'd be
I would
tempted.
love it, but that's like saying if the Bengals, if Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow were in the same draft, like, man, if there's any way the Bengals can get Joe Burrow at 1 and then trade up to 5 to get Jamar Chase.
Neither of them are going top 5.
It is a great, and that's where we disagree. And we're really going to get into this tomorrow.
Wow.
Henry, well, we actually all look good on this beat in terms of Michael Penix. Todd, you were on it before anyone else months ago. And in fact, someone in the comment section to start this pod said, Todd was right. Penix is him. And it certainly looks like it. And we got tons of Michael Penix talk to get into tomorrow. We're actually going to really dive into that. Henry's trying to be all smart, saying yesterday he said how the Broncos are going to get Penix. Well, Ryan and I over this weekend put it in writing before Henry to say that the Broncos we're going to land Michael Penix potentially. So, but credit to all of us. We were all on it before yesterday.
And I will say, 1 week after Todd said it's Penix, I also said, Todd, I think Todd is right.
Else remember that?
I will run the tape. I'm going to go find that because Penix is Todd's guy. He was there first.
Well, how about this?
I've been on there, though.
Over at Bet365, Michael Penix is plus 3,300 to be the number 1 overall pick in the draft. And I bet 24 hours ago, before yesterday, he was probably at plus 5,000 or something like that. His stock skyrocketed yesterday by far more than anyone's. And now he has an opportunity to have it skyrocket even more in the national championship game. Did you guys see what the odds are for Michael Penix in Washington playing Michigan next week?
No, but I'm betting
I don't know
on
if
him.
I want to see it.
I'm betting on him.
Plus 4.5.
Okay.
So
wait, Washington's up?
No, dogs.
No.
They're
4.5
dogs by
dogs.
4.5.
Yeah.
And I mean, 4.5 for the better quarterback. I like that over at Bet365. And speaking of Bet365, they are going to give you an option. When you use the code DNVR365, they're going to give you the option to either have $1,000 first bet safety net of $1,000. If your qualifying bet loses, you'll receive that in bonus bets back. Or if you place a $5 bet, you're going to get $150 in bonus bets after you use the code DNVR365. So if you like Michael Penix to the Broncos, you'll be able to bet on that pretty soon over at Bet365. If you like Michigan to cover the 4.5, you can bet on that over at over at Bet365 by using that code DNVR365. And if you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit or text 1-800-GAMBLER. So make sure to check them out and please gamble responsibly. You must be physically located in Colorado and 21 and older.
And if you want to see Penix live and in action, check out our friends over at Game Time, where you can find game tickets for basketball, football, whatever your sporting event. Game Time has it all, and I love Game Time personally. I've used it about 3 or 4 times this year to go to Nuggets games. And just to, be honest, I actually have a plug on Nuggets tickets. Somebody that, can get me some really good tickets at a really good price. And sometimes Game Time beats them out. And so even though I love them and love the Nuggets, I get my plug and connection. I even go to Game Time to get some tickets even when I have that connection. So Game Time is it. And the great thing about them is they have all-in pricing. So you don't have to worry about the fees or not understanding what it's going to be until you get to your cart. You see it right there. You can choose what you want, and they'll definitely get you covered. You can take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code DNVR for 20% off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code DNVR for $20 off.
What would you guys guess over at Game Time for the national championship game in Houston? The cheapest ticket is all in on Game Time right now.
1,500.
I'll say 200.
You are So far off, Henry.
Really?
Todd, you are so close.
Really?
1398.
Yeah,
Really?
this is big time.
Yeah.
It's like the Super Bowl. Like you're not getting a
Damn.
Super Bowl for $200.
I remember looking last year. I guess that was because last year the Montana State game, it was
That's
like
totally.
no. It was more expensive to get into that than either of the semifinals. So that's where I was like basing it off of, because that was where it was like $450. But I guess the championship does probably. It's different than a semifinal.
I wonder what
thought it'd
these-
be kind of similar.
If Texas had pulled off that insane comeback, which they had no business being in, but they were, 12 yards away from winning?
Yeah.
If they would have won, because this game is in Houston, I wonder what those prices
It would have
be.
been even worse.
Yeah.
Because I
Exactly.
feel like you got to go off of like the fan base and all the sponsors and boosters for the school. Like
yep,
Texas is
yeah.
all oil money. Like everybody's going to that game.
Yep.
And the other thing about Texas is that that's like a recruiting hotbed.
Yep.
Like I bet both these teams have at least like 20 guys from Texas. And so you got like all the family and friends and all that out there too. So like if you'd been playing this in like Nebraska or something, it wouldn't cost nearly as much to get in.
Yeah.
Do you think
Which they would never do.
with NIL money, do you think the kids, the players, are now having to buy these
For sure.
expensive tickets for their man?
Yep.
I would imagine. Yeah. Yeah.
You better have a good check to buy some $1,500 tickets too.
Or
Oh.
everyone's becoming best friends with Arch Manning
Yeah,
since
yeah.
he's worth like $10 million now.
Exactly.
Hey, my parents really want to come watch me play in this. Can you help me out here?
You think
And they-
Peyton will be there?
Well, they didn't win.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
Of course.
yeah.
I'm an
And
idiot.
did you see how they were just trying to like reel us in a little bit, having him warm up on the
Yeah.
sidelines, put his helmet on?
Yep.
They knew the whole time he
then
wasn't
so
going
they're
back.
like, hey, announcers, mention this,
Yeah,
mention this,
yeah.
because they did. Oh, how about the picture at Media Day of the starting quarterback of Texas, who's having a great year,
Oh,
Quinn
yeah.
Ewers.
Yep.
No one's talking to him. Everyone's talking to Arch, and then he's literally, the picture is of Quinn turning his head to look, and it's just
Yeah.
like, damn,
big
that's
time.
sad. It is. All right, speaking of big time, that has kind of happened in Denver.
Yeah.
Russell Wilson's sitting at the table getting paid $50 million, and he's turning his shoulder over looking at Jarrett Stidham get all of this attention
Yep.
over the past week. And it's just the situation that no one saw 18 months ago. Maybe 11 months ago, people could have maybe saw it coming, but probably not this soon, especially with what the ramifications are. But there's been so many developments. Let's take a step back and kind of reset where we are and get all the details about what's happened this past week with Russ and Sean and the Broncos and Jarrett Stidham, to see what it means moving forward, because there's some very interesting things that I want to make sure we throw out there. So it's Tuesday right now. Wednesday of last week, it was announced that Sean Payton has made the decision to bench Russell Wilson for Jarrett Stidham. Then that day, Sean Payton made it very clear that this was for performance purposes. Of course, he said there's economics involved, but this was for performance purposes. He said Russell Wilson was going to be the backup. Then about an hour later, reports start to come out that in the Broncos bye week, after beating the Chiefs, the Broncos asked Russell Wilson, or as the report said, threatened Russell Wilson, that if he didn't push back his injury guarantees a full year, that he was going to be benched. Russ said, nope, not doing that. The Broncos did not bench him until, of course, last week. The NFLPA got involved. The NFL got involved. The NFLPA said, if you do this, you are violating his contract and we'll be able to sue you. That report came out later. And then so there was a lot of speculation. Well, is Russ actually going to be benched or actually going to be the backup? Turns out he was.
Yep.
Sean Payton stuck to his word. And when Sean was asked about that on Friday, he said, yes, he's going to be the backup. I already told you that, and I'm the one making decisions around here. So
Yep.
he is going to be the backup. Turned out he was the backup. He was not inactive, so it was not the Derek Carr situation that we saw a year ago where, crazy enough, Jarrett Stidham was the one to step in with the Raiders for the final 2 games of last season. Then Russell Wilson talked on Friday for the first time since all of this happened, and Russ confirmed. They came up to me in the bye week and said if I did not waive or push back my injury guarantees, that they were going to bench me. And I told them no. And we have a clip of Russ talking about this, which we'll get to in a second. Sunday comes around. Russ does in fact, he is the backup. Jarrett Stidham goes out and plays, and then we found out yesterday that for Week 18, it is going to be Jarrett Stidham starting. Russell Wilson is going to be the backup. So that's kind of the short of everything that happened this past week. Did I miss any details here?
No, I think you got it.
So what does this mean moving forward? Well, first, let's hear from Sean and Russ, because in terms of the future, they both said some very interesting things. So this is Russ talking about what happened and taking us through just his thought process in terms of the future as well. So this was Russ talking for the very first time. You can hear the emotion in his voice. You can feel it. And this is a long clip, but I want to make sure that everyone can hear exactly what Russ had to say.
What can you say about that?
Yeah, they just during the we beat the Chiefs. They came up to me during the bye week and began the bye week on Monday or Tuesday, and they told me that if I didn't change my contract, my injury guaranteed, that I'd be I'd be benched for the rest of the year. And for I don't know, I think we had 9 games left or so. I was definitely disappointed about it, and it was a process throughout the whole week, for a whole bye week, and it was we just came off beating the Chiefs, played a pretty good game against the Chiefs. We just came off of that, so I was excited, obviously, for us to fight for the playoffs and get on a hot streak, and and then NFLPA and NFL got involved or whatever, I think, but at some point. But I think for me, I just I came here to play here, to win. I knew it was going to be a process to I signed a 7-year deal to for us to go and play hard, and that's my goal every time I step into the white lines, is give everything I have. I want to be here, I want to play here, I want to be able to win here, I want to win championships here, I want to give my all every week, no matter what the circumstances are, no matter what the score is. And I want to be the best teammate and leader that I can be in the midst of it all. And so that's why I was out here at practice every day, and I told Jarrett I'd help him and lead and do whatever it takes and keep the guys going and try to lead the right way. That's all I know. I don't know anything else. I think winning is a habit, mentality-wise, focus-wise, and the approach. No matter if you're the 1, if you're the 2, no matter what, should never change. And I love this game. I love this team, and I love the teammates that I got too. And I just, it's a disappointing thing for sure. It's definitely been tough on me over the past several weeks, knowing it and all that. But at the same time, I love this game and what God's granted me with.
So when you're benched,
Straight from Russ's mouth, and I did miss one very important detail. Todd, you pointed it out because of something Russ said.
Yeah, he was talking about they. They came up to me, they spoke to me and told me I would be benched. My question is, who is they? Because usually this is not a conversation for a head coach. I've gone through contract negotiations more than once by being tendered, going to the Vikings, going to the get my second contract. This is a conversation that the GM has with your agent. I'm not saying Sean Payton didn't know it may happen, but I'm not saying that Sean Payton led this conversation or was the one to quote unquote threaten him. And I think that both, I guess, statements could be true. Sean Payton could want to have bench Russ because of how he played, and George Payton could have wanted to sit Russ down because of the injury settlement. So I think they very much could be true, and both of them kind of looked at each other like, hey, I'm ready to sit him down, and hey, we need to sit him down. Okay, let's sit him down. I don't think that it had to be that Sean was lying and that he was involved with the threat, but then I just see both sides.
That is huge in this entire thing because of how it went down, but also future ramifications. That part is huge because the one detail that I missed about everything that's happened this past week is Sean Payton being adamant. Wednesday when he benched him, Friday when we talked to him next, and then after the game as well, he was adamant. And the word he used, he said, I was not privy to these conversations about having asking Russ to waive the injury guarantee. And then so one, I think that could be big for the future of if this does go to litigation, if the Broncos do move on from Russ and the NFLPA tries to save some of Russ's contract by saying, no, they benched him because he wouldn't waive those injury guarantees. Sean can say exactly what you said. No, I benched him for performance because I wasn't involved in those contract talks. And then also, I didn't bench him after he didn't waive the injury guarantees. I waited, 7 weeks. I
Yep.
think there was 7 weeks
a lot
before
of
he
time.
actually benched
Exactly.
him. That is a lot of time. So that's a very key thing to notice,
Yep.
Todd.
And it makes sense that Sean wouldn't be the one who has that conversation because, like, you just have to imagine how that plays out. So you're like, okay, it's Monday. I'm Sean Payton. I go up to Russell and say, like, hey, I want to rework your contract. Like, we need to do all these things. And he's like, well, hell no, we're not going to do that. And then all of a sudden, 2 days later, you're just like back to talking football. Like, it's like, hey, this is this route that we're going to have, like, Jerry run this week. We think it's going to come up against, like, that relationship can't be, like, weighed down by the fact that you're asking him to give back money. That's why you send George in there to do it, because Russ can hate George. If Russ hates Sean, that just creates a toxic environment between your coach and your starting quarterback over the course of the next, like, rest of the season. Like, that's not something that gets better. So having Sean have that conversation, first of all, it's just a thing that never happens. Like, that's not the coach's job. But also, there's a reason it's not the coach's job, because then it would just be uncomfortable.
I've never.
And I think there's so many details within contracts
Yeah.
that it would be hard for me to even believe that Sean knew every detail of Russ's contract.
Yeah.
you know, usually just like me, do you know how much the guy is making and for how long? And that's kind of the gist of like my, most coaches' understanding of it. There's 53 players on this roster. I don't know everybody's guarantee. I don't know their split. I don't know their injury split. I don't know if they go to IR, what we're paying on them. Like, that's too many details for me to try to figure out for every single player. So, and even I think they brought it up that they talked about this last year. Didn't he say that?
So there was a report that came out, which we'll get into in just a second, that said this offseason, this summer, they approached Russ with this as well, which is the first time we've heard that.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never done sketchy enough things to need intermediaries, but what I see from some movies is sometimes it's good to have some intermediaries.
Yeah.
And the Broncos set themselves up perfectly with this because of using the intermediary where it's not Sean talking straight to Russ. It's George talking to Russ's agent. And then, of course, things blow up, but there's a little wiggle room there that's going to be key. Now, Sean talked about he and Russ's relationship, kind of what you're pointing to, Henry. And he said something very interesting as well that I want to get into after I tell you about Backus and Shanker. If you need to sue anyone, whether it's for something like this, a workplace accident, or if you're involved in an auto, truck, motorcycle, rideshare, pedestrian accident, they are there for you. And smash the 2 if you need to sue. That's 222-2222, or visit them at coloradolaw.net, where when you call them, they're going to give you a free consultation. They're going to work on your case for free. You only pay them when they win you your money. That's probably the contract that the Broncos wish they had with Russ. They only had to pay him when he won games for them. Not the case with Backus and Shanker, where you only pay them when they win for you. So check them out if you're involved in any sort of accident over at 222-2222.
And check out Breckenridge Brewery. My family was in town this weekend. Went to the tailgate before the game yesterday and had a bunch of those free Breckenridge beers that we put out there. It's such a shame that's the last tailgate. They were so close. Like, they just need one of those games to flip. I guess the Chiefs are the only way you actually get the division win. But it'd be so fun if we're sitting here right now talking about, like, yep, if the Chiefs had lost, then you're saying, like, oh, if the Chargers beat them, Broncos are in with a win. Or if the Steelers hadn't come back to beat the Seahawks, you're saying, if the Jags just beat the Titans and the Ravens beat the Steelers, or the Titans beat the Jags, Ravens beat the Steelers, they're right in it. And that sucks. But that was the last tailgate of the year because the stupid Chiefs came back from a 10-point deficit. And that means that your only way to get Breckenridge beers will be to go to the bar or to King Soopers or just about anywhere else around here, because they're just about everywhere. And if you want to see where you can get Breckenridge beers, go to breckbrew.com, use the beer locator, you just put in your zip code, you click on which beer you want, and it'll tell you where the closest place to get it is. Or you can just not click any of the boxes. It'll tell you all the Breckenridge beers near you. They're everywhere across the country. So go to breckbrew.com and find a Breck beer near you.
Based off of not just what's happened this past week, but everything that's happened since Sean Payton took this job, what would a bystander say the relationship is between Russ and Sean?
Just looking at the optics and understanding the dynamic, I would say it's not perfect. It's not I wouldn't say it's a positive one.
No,
Yeah.
certainly not. I'd go even further and say it's probably not a very good one.
Oh, okay.
Considering 2 weeks ago, we saw Sean just chewing Russ out.
Yeah.
And that I'm saying from a far away standpoint,
Yeah.
I would at least say it's probably not a good one.
See, I would say just like normal work relationship. Like they're not like best friends. They don't dislike each other. Like I think like yelling on the sideline, like that just comes with the territory when it comes to football. How many times did coach yell at you, Todd?
Never. I never did anything wrong.
Oh boy, there we go.
A lot of yelling in practice. So I had a really good linebacker coach to like just let you play on Sundays.
Oh,
Like
okay.
even if you messed up, he'll just like show you something on the paper and then kind of just walk away. And then he yell at you in the meeting room,
There
and
you
yell at
go.
you at practice. So definitely had some back and forth and some yelling.
Would you say you have like a bad relationship with him?
No, great relationship.
Exactly.
Great relationship.
So you have a great relationship and you're still getting yelled at. Like to me, like from the
Oh,
outside,
Todd,
like
Todd did not say he was getting yelled at on game day on the
not
sideline.
on game day,
Yeah,
not on game day, but like that's just it's just a thing that happens. Like that's how his coach addressed it. Like to me, they have a very normal relationship between like a player and a coach. I wouldn't say there's anything that makes me think like good relationship, but there also isn't anything that makes me say like bad relationship.
But I think between a quarterback and a head coach, it has to be a great relationship.
That is fair.
You need
That is fair.
that to be a strong bond. And even like, I love watching Harbaugh and Lamar Jackson because you wouldn't know they had a great dynamic, but just how many times he comes to the sidelines like, hey, Lamar, what you want to do? You want to go for it right now? Or you want to, all right, let's punt it. Lamar wants to, like, it's a great working relationship and they have a good understanding with one another. And I just don't feel like that's the case right now with Russell and Sean.
Yeah, just off the top of my head, I can't think of another head coach that has screamed at a franchise quarterback. Yeah. I don't think there's a
I
time.
wonder if Belichick did with Brady.
Well, they say all the
heard
time
it
in practice.
in
all the time.
in
Yeah.
meetings and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know about during a game. I don't think Sean. No videos have come out of Sean doing this to Drew Brees, and there's been 2-3 weeks for videos to come out of this happening.
But
and
that's
then,
a great relationship.
So that's why I say I don't think it's a very good one.
Yeah, I don't think
And
so either.
Henry, it's fair that you take the other side, but I personally don't think it is. And so after the game, Sean was asked about his relationship and just kind of circling back on everything that happened. Let's hear what Sean had to say because I think it's interesting.
Hey, Sean, since we spoke to you Friday before Russell Wilson spoke, what did you think of his comments about how there apparently was a benching threatened? And did you know anything about that? Since I would imagine a coach is responsible for benching.
Yeah, you asked that question on Friday. I think I answered it pretty well. And so when the season ends and you have questions specific to all of that, I wasn't privy to the dialogue, but you'll be able to ask the appropriate people. Russ has been fantastic this week. And I think this idea that he and I, or we don't have a good relationship, or he's not the fit, all of that stuff, I think comes from people further away from our program. You guys are close to it. So I think the further away people are from the program, the more they just jump to a narrative, and it is what it is. So, but he's approached this week like we expected, like a pro, and yeah, that's it. And so, any other questions?
So I have no doubts that Russ has approached this past week like a total pro, been fantastic to Jarrett, and handled himself great. I don't believe Sean saying that he and Russ have a great relationship.
I kind of, I guess I'll play devil's advocate real quick. I can feel like you can't do what I need you to do, but it doesn't mean I have to hate you.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like we can be, I don't have to like feel like I can't stand this guy. I want him gone. Like, but at the same time, I know like, honestly, man, like for us to be successful, you're probably not the fit, but it doesn't mean I can't stand you and I just want to see you do bad. But we can have an understanding in that regard.
Sure.
So I think maybe that's what we see. And it's not that he necessarily like hates Russ.
Hates him as a person.
Yeah, he doesn't hate him as a person.
Right.
He just know
Yeah,
he can't
totally
do what he
fair.
wants him to do. And like I said, if you have a quarterback and a head coach, it can't just be a okay or somewhat good relationship. It has to be a fantastic relationship in order for you guys to be successful.
Exactly. That's where I'm at. Where it's like I don't think they're going out and like playing golf together.
No.
Like I don't think they're like
Not even same course.
exactly. But again, like you see Drew Brees come into Broncos practices.
Yeah.
Like that's just not how that goes. Like and again, like, it takes time to build that relationship as well. To me, it's like I don't think that they're like going to meetings to get, like, Sean's like saying like, oh, and Russ, you're gonna have to, like, I'm sure they get along just great. Like, I'm sure they joke around. I'm sure they have like a generally good time. Like, they spend a lot of time together. But I don't think that they're like,
I don't know if they're joking around or hanging out there. I just think, it's business and we're both here, and I'm not going to say anything to like be rude or mean or demeaning, but I'm not going to like, hey, how's here doing? Like, it's not that either.
okay.
So I totally see where both of you guys are. I probably lean more where you are, Todd. And I think it is fair to say that Sean doesn't necessarily hate Russell Wilson as a person and has no relationship with him at all. But very clearly, the working relationship,
for sure,
or at least the dynamic of Russ being the starting quarterback, has completely diminished. That's been very clear to me over these past six days. I mean, even further than that, it did not seem like Russ fit what Sean wanted to do. And then Sean made it very clear by benching him for Jarrett Stidham.
Yep.
But, and why the headline of this show is there any chance Russell Wilson can be back next year, is two reasons. One, the dead cap implications of moving on from Russ are so drastic that no team has ever done a move like this before, just because of how much it would kill a team. So there's that to keep in mind. And then the second thing, Ian Rappaport, a national guy, one of the guys that Sean was kind of pointing to, a national guy who's farther away from the situation. Sean was discrediting those type of people. But Ian Rappaport, the second biggest national reporter outside of Adam Schefter when it comes to the NFL, put out a very detailed article this past week on Sunday. And one of the things it said was it's not a guarantee at all that Russ is not back next year. In fact, Russ could be back next year if he's their best option at quarterback. And so if Ian Rappaport's putting that out there, we got to talk about it. Is there any chance of that happening?
I think strictly for the money. It's not because of anybody's performance. It's not because of anybody's relationship. It's literally a financial thing. It's funny saying, sometimes they say it's cheaper to keep her. I think this is a situation we might be in right now. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't necessarily think it's the best fit, but if it has implications 3 or 4 years from now to where we're still going to be in a rebuilding phase further down the line, might have to keep her.
I mean, I don't know. There's a lot that goes into it. Like, it's easy to say, like, Stidham looked just as good as Russ, and he's that much cheaper, but the thing is you don't save that much money. Like, if you cut him instead of keeping him, you save no money next year. You save about $6 million the year after that. And then at that point, you would cut him just because of the way the money works. And then you'd pay another $18 million, then $12 million after. So you have like $6 million savings, 18, then 12 after next year. And so it is like a substantial amount of money. I do think that like there's no chance he comes back. Like you've already benched him. Like if he does come back, you're probably making him the backup quarterback. It's a toxic situation.
Yeah.
You already have Stidham on the roster. So like you also have to factor in that you're probably not carrying 3 quarterbacks, you wouldn't think. So you're cutting him, and that costs you a few $1 million if you move on. Maybe you just run it back with Russ and Stidham, but that just seems unlikely. I think at this point, like I just don't see a path forward. I just don't see a way. I don't see any world in which Sean Payton says, actually, yeah, Russ, we had it all right with you, and over the course of the next 3 years, we'll give you another $37 million.
Yeah, I agree. I don't see it. The financials are awful, but the Broncos have made this move by benching Russ, of pretty much saying we're willing to take this. And Sean talked about it a little bit yesterday when asked about some of his comments about when he was asked specifically, you said you wanted a spark by benching Russ and bringing Jarrett Stidham back. You wanted to see improvement. And he said the comments last week were a sum total of 15 games. And yet there were some things I was really encouraged about yesterday. Certainly, if we're going to measure it week by week, man, you'd say, man, we scored under 20 points. That wasn't enough. We missed on opportunities in the red zone, but we were safe with the football. Certainly, we look forward to this next game. But that was a stretch. That was a long stretch of 15 weeks where we've seen a very similar pattern. I think that'll change. I made the decision to move with Stidham with the hopes that it's going to help bring change. There's no guarantee that it does, but in the meantime, it's something that I felt was necessary. Sean didn't just point to one thing about Russ. He essentially said it's 15 games of things that weren't going in the right direction. And so I just think I don't think there's any chance that Russell Wilson's back. The cap stuff, they're going to have to get very manipulative about. Todd, they're going to be asking tons of guys, hey, you want to restructure?
Yep.
You want
They've already
some money
started.
up front?
I won't say any names, but I definitely
go.
had some friends be approached like, hey, next year. So we'll see what happens.
Can't that turn out to be actually restructures a good thing for players? Because it just typically it means a lot of money up front.
Sometimes.
So like the simple restructure where you just say, like, hey, Court, we owe you $14 million next year. If we just give that all to you as a signing bonus right now and then give you the vet minimum over the course of the year, so it's like $13 million right now, then $1 million in game checks, then they get to split that $13 million over the next like 3 years.
Right.
Like that one's good for the team. If you're saying, hey,
Good for the player too.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because in like the simple restructure, they just get the money up front, you get cap relief.
Right.
In the Tim Patrick situation, where you say, Tim, you season-ending injuries, back-to-back years, like we're on the hook for $10 million next year. We just can't pay you that. If you want to come back, we'd love to have you back. We got to reduce that down to like $3 million though, because we just can't trust that you're going to be healthy. That's a very different conversation because that's just a pay cut.
Well, and exactly. And those are two different things, which we're definitely, since the Broncos are going to be doing a lot of those this year, we got to make sure that restructure, at least when I say restructure, I'm talking about let's give you a big signing bonus so we can spread that out cap hit wise over the next many years. And then there's just straight pay cuts too.
Yeah. And I feel like we may go down the route of pay cuts more because of how much money we have to pay Russ. Because if we pay him all that money and then just front load everybody's contract, then we're just out more money in the same year. So there have been mentions of pay cuts. I won't say anybody's name, but at the same time, if I'm a player and you're asking me to make a pay cut, okay, if I'm playing with Peyton and I know we're going to the Super Bowl next year, I'll take a pay cut because it's worth it. If we're blowing this whole thing up and we don't know how successful we're going to be next year, I got to keep the money I got because there's no guarantee that I go to another team, make more money, or that we have anything here that makes me successful to earn more money in the next year. I can't restructure or take a pay cut. I kind of got to lock into what I have, in my contract right now.
And that's where the team says, okay, so say it's like $5 million. So we say you're making $5 million. We want to get that down to $3 million. What the math comes down to is like, okay, then cut me. Let me hit free agency because I can go get that $5 million somewhere else. So for the Broncos to be able to go in there with any sort of power, they have to be able to say, you're not going to get this on the open market, and that seems, just from like looking through everything quickly, I'm curious who they could even say that to. When you say like, hey, DJ Jones, for example, we owe you $10 million next year. We don't think you're going to get $10 million on the open market, so you have to accept our pay cut. I think he does just go get $10 million on the open market. And I just don't see a lot of names where you just say, hey, you're not going to get this money anywhere else, so you might as well just take the pay cut.
When what limits it, too, is you can only do this with players that don't have guaranteed money.
For sure.
Anymore,
exactly.
Too. So Tim Patrick's probably the biggest one that you look and you say, after back-to-back season-ending injuries where he hasn't played, the Broncos do have some leverage there. But that's one guy where you're saving $5 million to. And we'll get into all the moves that the Broncos have to make because there's a ton if they move on.
And then I guess the final thing they could do is go to a guy like Mike McGlinchey and say, hey, we owe you $15 million next year. Your guaranteed money runs out after next year. We can throw in like a little bit more guaranteed 2025 money and give you a little bit more insurance that you're going to be around and give you that money kind of down the line if you take this pay cut right now. So that's, I guess, kind of the final thing.
Right.
It's going to be an interesting offseason because Sean really likes that sort of stuff.
Oh, he loves pushing things down the line.
He does.
When it comes to the cap. Just look at the New Orleans Saints. They're in a tough cap situation after Sean left, and so that's why I don't think most coaches would have benched Russ and said, we're just going to move on from him. But Sean is not most coaches. He's going to do it his way, and that's why I think. So let's wrap this conversation up with this question, because Russ also said, I want to stay in Denver. He mentioned that multiple times, and he said, I genuinely mean that. I want to stay in Denver. So maybe the only situation I see Russ coming back is if he were to take a massive pay cut. But Russ is guaranteed $30-40 million. Guaranteed. If he drops that to $5 million, yeah, I see Russ coming back for 1 year, potentially competing with the rookie. Why would Russ pass up on $35 million? He's not going to do that. Even if he wants to be here, he's not going to do that. So the question, what percent chance would you say Russ is back next year?
I say, what was the Broncos' chances to make the playoffs before the game? 5%?
Yeah.
I think there's a 5% chance Russ comes back.
Yeah.
And going back to your point about him saying he genuinely wants to be here, he's playing, y'all. Like, there's no way. Your first year was horrible. The second year you get benched. What makes you want to stay in this place? Like, if it's me, I got to get the hell out of here. Like, there got to be better for me somewhere else than this. Like, there's no way he honestly wants to come back. Like, from the drama that's happened this week to all the media wanting to bench him last year, like, it's been nothing but trauma since he's been here.
Yeah.
He's had a losing record. It hasn't been successful. That's like on a personal level.
Right.
What would really make you want to be here, man? Like, there's no way.
I mean, since like week 1 of last season, there's probably been like 500 days since then. He's had maybe 15 good days, and just all 485 just terrible days.
It's Russell Wilson. Every day's good, though, Henry. With that positive attitude.
Yeah, I mean, when you're getting that game check every week, I guess maybe. Yeah, it's just so hard when he stands there, though, and he's fighting back tears saying, I just want to be in Denver. Like, I love Denver. I love my teammates. I love these guys so badly. Like, we have a house here. I want to be here. I want to win.
I'm not buying that one. Just like you didn't buy
You're
Sean.
right.
I'm not buying
You are
that,
right.
man.
You are
There's
right.
No way.
Yeah, I'll say, I guess you can't say it's impossible. So 1%, less than 1%. I guess there's technically a chance, but he's not.
So what are you going
back. Call it 1%. Easier to put on a graphic.
I'm going 0.1% chance
Yeah,
because I think the
that's
only
fair.
way he's here is if he takes a massive pay cut, not restructure, pay cut.
Yes.
And again, why would you do that?
No
if
reason.
you sign a contract that says you are going to get $40 million, and the only way that you're not going to get that is if you sign another contract saying I'm not going to get that, why would you do that?
Yeah.
Especially with how bad things have gone. You don't want to be here again.
No.
You want to be paid to leave, and then you can go sign to be a starter somewhere else, and that team's going to pay you a vet minimum, but you're getting paid by the Broncos anyway. So it's kind of like a perfect world for both him and his new team. So I don't see it happening. And I think we're going to see a couple more articles and a couple more reports come out nationally over the next 2 months saying maybe there's a chance, maybe there's something in place just for the Broncos to have leverage, try to have leverage over this situation. But there's no leverage. When you sign an awful deal, you just kind of have to eat that and then move on.
It's funny because if they cut him and truly cut him and they're going to have to pay him his money, I bet you he makes more than vet minimum next year. I bet he gets at least a Jarrett Stidham contract.
See, but the thing is, so the way the contract works, it's offset. So like the Broncos, let me double check. So he has a guaranteed $17 million salary next year. So Broncos give him that 17. If a new team gives him $5 million,
then they only give
that
him
goes
12.
down to 12.
Okay.
And so that's why he's going to go to a new team.
So then,
And the Broncos are going to pay And so it just makes sense. So like he can just take the same amount of money. He can take basically the same contract and just go play for Mike Tomlin, who loves this style of football. He isn't the Sean Payton we're going to scheme all these guys up 15 yards downfield and we're just going to go and go and go. It's like, no, we're going to play great defense for 60 minutes, 58 minutes. We're going to be down 13-7. Russ, that's your time to shine. And that's where he shines. Like,
So
it's
the only reason that Russ would get more than the vet min is if he were to get more than $17 million from a team.
If there's like a bidding war.
Right, because then so what's going to happen is Russ is going to get cut. He's going to sign for a 1-year vet minimum deal with the team as a prove-it year for him, kind of. And then if he does well, then he'll probably go out. He's not signing a 5-year $250, but he'll sign a 2-year $100 million deal or something like that with the team.
I don't like those little caveats.
It's
to
so
those
bad.
deals.
It's so bad.
because the way I thought and the way I thought my agent was telling me is that my final year of my deal, I had $500,000 that the Broncos were going to give me or pay me if they cut me. And so they cut me, and so I called my agent like, "Where's the check?" And they was like, "Oh no, it was like they guaranteed that you would make $500,000 in this year. So the moment I went to the Vikings and made more, they didn't have to give me anything. I was like, I was just sat at home and collected a check. Like, I got my body right. Maybe wait till next year.
Exactly.
I don't like that.
Oh, that is sad. Especially if you don't know. That's terrible.
Right. I don't like
That's
that.
how like all those college coach contracts work too. So like if you get so many coaches that are fired, but the whole contract is generally guaranteed. And so they have the offset language too. But then there's another clause, and that other clause is you have to try to find a job. So like you can't just sit at home. And so all these coaches will be like, hey, I'm going to go like take these 2 interviews. I'm going to half-ass it.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to go sit at home. So at least like if it goes to court, I can say, oh, I tried. Like, look, I took this flight. I interviewed. I brought my papers with me. But tried to get a job.
Yeah.
Or it's like if you're fired at Western Kentucky or something like that. Well, you apply for the Alabama head coaching job. You're not going to get it, but you tried to get a job there. So you go way above. And Todd, because you brought up your situation, someone in the comments earlier said, Todd, have you ever restructured or taken a pay cut?
No, I don't. I don't have that in me.
No,
I need my money.
Yes, exactly. And like it'd be different. I mean, obviously, like you did well, like second contract, all that sort of stuff. You'd never signed 5 years, $242 million.
And I feel like I worked too hard to get there.
Exactly.
Like I played on my rookie deal for 2 years as a starter before I ever got another
Yes.
paycheck. So now that I finally am getting good money, no. We're not restructuring anything.
Exactly.
You're paying me that damn money.
I got some back pay. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
100%. And that's why when teams cut players, it's more often than not when their guaranteed money is done. That's why when a deal, if you look at a deal and it's 5 years, $250 million with 160 guaranteed, okay, it's really a 3-year deal because likely that 160 million will be in the first 3 years of the deal. It's a 3-year, $160 million deal. Rarely, and Kirk Cousins was the only quarterback, I think, that's at least signed a big deal where it's fully guaranteed. But his deal wasn't 5 years, $250 million. It was 3 years, $100 million. So he could have essentially signed a 5-year, $160 million deal, and it would have been the exact same as the 3-year, $100 million deal.
Yep, definitely.
So we're going to talk a lot about money moving forward because this offseason, it's going to be like no other team in the history of the NFL in terms of the number of deals this Broncos team is going to have to make to deal with Russell Wilson's contract.
Yeah. That's to me, it's like, so they said last year, like, this isn't going to be an every year thing, spending this much money on free agents and all that stuff. This year.
Who said that?
Was it Sean saying that the
they?
owners said that we're not doing this?
No, it was Greg Penner himself.
Did the owners say that?
Yeah. So Greg Penner, the one writing the check, said, we're not spending $250 million every offseason.
Exactly.
Just so you know, Sean.
And so it kind of makes sense because you're going to cut Russ this year, probably 99% chance, and you're not like spending real money. You're just taking cap hits. Like you're spending cap money to get rid of Russ this year. And so you're not really going to have the opportunity to go out and sign free agents anyway. You're just going to wind up with like Pat gets a new deal, Quinn gets a new deal, and that's kind of the spending.
Yep.
Do you ever feel like the ownership feels like, why the hell did we do this?
No.
Or do they feel like they've made a good investment and like they're just waiting to see it come to fruition? Or is it just like, who signed us up for this? Like, we have done nothing but pour money into this, and it hasn't worked out, and we're going to have to do it again this offseason.
Could you believe 16-ish months ago, they spent $4.5 billion in cash of their own money to buy this team. They think it's going to be probably the coolest thing in the world. And then they had one of the most embarrassing seasons of all time. Had to fire the coach they inherited within just a couple of months. Then they go out and they make this $100 million signing in Sean Payton, who's supposed to be this great thing. And then you lose by 50 points in week 3. You start 1-5. And now you're going to be moving on from the quarterback that you thought you were inheriting as like this awesome piece moving forward. Yeah, maybe owning a team isn't as fun as it seems.
It sounds stressful right now.
I will say, if I was in their shoes, though, like you have to remember, like they have plenty of billions of dollars. Like,
But you never want to
no,
lose.
you never want to. You never want to. But I'm sure they're frustrated. But to me, this would be kind of like a game. Like, I mean, it is a literal game. Like, it's football. And to me, it'd be like, okay, we got to find a way to go do this. And I'm sure there's like times when you're just like, how the hell are we ever going to do this? Like, it's going to be another 2-3 years before we get out of like the paying Russell era. And that really sucks. But when that's out, like, we got to find a way. It's almost like a video game at that point. And like last year, despite all the contracts and stuff, Forbes estimated the Broncos brought in like $100 million profit. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you're still like making money. Could you have like invested that money somewhere else and gotten a bigger profit? I don't know, because I don't think about where you spend your billions of dollars. I will say, like, it's probably frustrating. It's probably disappointing, like the highs and lows and all that. But it would also be just like a lot of fun to be like, okay, we're going and getting Sean Payton. We're going to find like a rookie. Like, we are winning a Super Bowl here before I die. And that's kind of like how you live out the rest of your life.
I think you're right about that. I just think they probably thought it was going to be a lot more fun in
Probably.
this first year.
For sure.
Easier.
Because of Russ.
Yep.
Like,
Definitely.
you have a franchise quarterback.
Oh, yeah.
And then it just hasn't been that way. We got 2 super chats to hit really quick. Andrew coming in and says, gotta disagree with Hank on Stiddy looking the same as Russ. First half with Stiddy, double the yardage of Russ ever had in a first half, and no 3 and outs.
Yep. And then what happened in the second half? Then all of a sudden it all balanced out to the exact same thing. And again, like, it's different because you're different game situations, all that sort of stuff. You know, Russ, the Broncos, I guess coming into this week, I'm not sure what this week did. The Broncos had the best fourth quarter passer rating, or second best fourth quarter passer rating in the NFL behind the 49ers. They're the only teams over 100 passer rating in the fourth quarter. So you're like, the first half was really good. Broncos have struggled a little bit in first halves. And then you get to like the 2-minute drills, and that's where Russ shines. It's a different arc, I would say, between, if you just look start of the game to end of the game, to me, you got about the same thing.
A different path, but the same result.
Yeah.
Well, so what you're saying is Jarrett Stidham first 3 quarters, then Russ in the fourth quarter.
I would even give Russ the 2-minute drill at the end of the first half as well.
How about
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
And last one coming in from Kurt says, we got another one after. He says, would you trade 2 first-round picks, a third, and Pat Surtain for a top 3 draft pick? Asking for a comment. GM's over here. LOL. I never trade generational talent for any prospect. Go Broncos. In the chat today, there's been a lot of talk about, do you trade PS2? And I think there's going to be a lot of talk of that this offseason.
ESPN just put up like a big story, and the headlines of this, it's more about like the whole Bears situation and Fields and all that sort of stuff. But what they teased was personnel people around the NFL are saying, like, you look at what the Panthers gave up to trade up for Bryce Young last year. This year is going to cost way more than that.
Yep.
It's going to cost way more to get up to number 1 for Caleb Williams than it did for Bryce Young. So the idea that you just take that trade and say, this is how it does, this is how it works, not the truth. If to answer the question though, do I trade, what was it, 2 firsts, a third, and Pat?
Yep.
Nah. I am done trading first round picks, future picks to move up. Like, you have done so much, and that's why you're in this problem. To me, like, if you gave Russ, you put Russ on the 49ers, 49ers are still a great team. 49ers are still Super Bowl contender. You put Russ on the Ravens. They aren't as good as they are, of course. They're still a lot better than the Broncos are right now. Like, yes, there's a quarterback problem. There's also a problem with overall talent because you have 3 first-round draft picks on the entire freaking roster. Like, you can't keep trading future picks. Now, they might still do it, and I honestly think they will do it. But to me, no. You need more talent. You need more talent. Caleb Williams isn't coming in and just solving all your problems. You're probably just going to get even worse next year. You know, you look at Jarrett Stidham's passer rating last week, 93.8. There has been 1 rookie quarterback in the last 3 years who has had that passer rating or better over the course of their entire rookie season. Odds are what you got from Stidham last week is better than what you're getting from a rookie last year. Heavy. Like 95% chance that's the case. Only CJ Stroud's the exception.
Yeah.
So, like, you're getting worse at quarterback next year, and I think that's almost undeniable at this point. Don't get rid of more assets to get worse.
You're going to be very disappointed, Henry, because they're going to trade a lot of assets this year in order to get a quarterback. And we got one more that we got to hit really quick. But don't worry. we're really going to get into rookie quarterbacks tomorrow. So make sure to stay tuned. 11 a.m. And final one coming in from Tanner says, did the offense look the same? Because how realistic was it anyway for Sean to open up his 9,000 play playbook for 1 week to show his true offense? So we kind of did a little buy or sell. Do you believe this or not believe this, Todd? Tell me if you buy or sell what Sean said yesterday about the playbook. He was asked if he had to have a more condensed playbook because that was Jarrett Stidham's first game this year. And he said, that's kind of overblown how much you can open up a playbook. How you do a playbook is typically week by week. And you build it around your opponent, and that determines which plays you go to, which plays you don't. In terms of having an entire playbook open for a quarterback on a week-to-week basis isn't really how it works. Is that right?
That's 100% true. I think even on the defensive side of the ball, you go through training camp and you put in installs every single night. And it could be anywhere from like 10 to 20 plays a night. And then you kind of just get comfortable with them. And then as the season progresses, you pull things out that you've ran in training camp to kind of like expand your playbook, but you don't run all of it at once. I mean, going into a game, we may have 20 plays total. We have a backlog of 120 plays, but we kind of pick and choose week to week what we feel like will be best. So I think I buy it.
Yeah. It's not like Madden, where your playbook is like, you have like your 400 plays, and those are your 400 plays, and you just pull them out willy-nilly.
But even in Madden, how many do you run? I only run about 15 plays. You know what I'm saying?
I run like 3.
I can run quite a few. This Madden league gets me going. Like, I picked out, so there's like a 500 play maximum in a Madden playbook.
That's crazy.
I picked every single one of them individually, and I know when I need them.
You got too much time on your hands.
That is insane.
Bro, you know what the worst is? So my girlfriend's going to be in Arizona this week for work, and so I'm actually in bye week on Madden. And so these couple of days before we leave for Vegas, and she will be gone, I don't even have a Madden game to play.
Wow.
I don't know. I don't know.
Well, maybe study up on these rookie quarterbacks, because we're going to be talking about them tomorrow. Was Michael Penix the front runner to be the Broncos quarterback? We're going to get into tomorrow. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hit us with a thumbs up on your way out, and we'll see you tomorrow at 11 a.m.
We all silly like the mayor.